Hello, book lovers. This is the Blue-Eyed Black Devil. I know, long time, no recap, right? I get it, I understand. I am not the only one who recaps and reviews books here on YouTube. So let me be the first to give my most sincere apology for it being so long from the time I did my video announcement update to getting around to the recap. Life does get in the way, I know. However, this is no excuse. One of the other reasons I think it's taking me so long is because I'm still new to YouTube, guys. I'm still learning my way, so I will be bumbling as I go. So if you hear any stumbles, pregnant pauses, or me repeating myself, just know that I believe anyway that that's all a part of growth and learning, and I pray that I get better. I do not want to take anybody who happens to stop or visit my channel or the subscribers I have for granted. So please accept my most humble apology as I strive to do better. Now let's get into it. Alright, the book I am recapping is The Help by Kathryn Stockett. Like I said in my book announcement video many moons ago, this book is 451 pages long. It's told through the eyes of the three main characters, Aibileen, Minnie, and Skeeter. It's told over the course of 2 years from 1962 to 1964. If you know your history, then you know that the decade of the 60s, both the Civil Rights Movement and the KKK were in their heydays. Yes, guys, they were in the thick of things back then. Now about the author. Kathryn Stockett was born and raised in Jackson, Mississippi, which is where the story takes place. She graduated with a degree in English and creative writing from the University of Alabama. She currently resides in New York City and is married with one child. I'm going to do things in reverse here a little bit. At the end of the book, there's a segment titled Too Little, Too Late. And this is in Kathryn Stockett's words. This segment is only, 4, maybe even 6 minutes long, but I seem to learn the most about the book from reading those very few minutes. The biggest thing I learned from that section or segment is I believe this book is loosely based on Kathryn's life. I did watch the movie, which is where I started seeing press about Kathryn Stockett. I don't know, but it seemed like I vaguely can remember her saying that the book was loosely based on her life, but if I misheard that, which I doubt, this is still my opinion. I believe she did base it on her life for a few of the characters at that. But this is one of the ones. Let's go. Let's talk about the loosely based relationships, and then we'll delve into each one a little bit different. The first relationship that stands out to me is, in real life, Kathryn did have a black maid, and her maid's name was Demetri. Demetri doted on Kathryn, just like Aibileen doted on Mae Mobley. Kathryn herself said that she thinks that she wasn't the prettiest little girl or the prettiest or most attractive adult. But in her formative years, Dimitri was always there for, but especially in their formative years when kids need to know that they are special and pretty, needed, and loved. That was the role Dimitri played in Catherine's life. And in the book, the character Aibileen doted on the character May Mobley Leafolk for the same reasons. May Mobley was not the cutest little girl. This May Mobley knew. But Aibileen was always there to do the same things that Dimitri did for Catherine. All right, now, the character Skeeter Phelan, to me, was based on the adult Catherine Stockett. Like I said, they both the character Skeeter and real person Catherine both said that they were, born and, they were tall and gangly and they had unruly hair and this, that, and the other. But their maids saw past that and loved them for who they were, which is what I guess the families couldn't or wouldn't do. So we have Dimitri and Aibileen, and then May Mobley and young Catherine Stockett, and Skeeter and adult Catherine Stockett. Dimitri also has a lot in common with the character Minnie, because, she did. Dimitri and the character Minnie were both married to mean drunks. Both the character Minnie and Dimitri would talk about anything with their help, but they drew the line when it came to their husbands. They did not discuss the husbands at any given point in time. So that was another thing they had in common. The difference, though, is in real life, Dimitri did not have children. When asked how many children she had, she would often say 3, because she considered Catherine and her 2 siblings to be her children. In the book, Minnie had 5 children, and by the end of the book, she had 6 children, or she was pregnant with the 6th child. In the book, Minnie's father was also an alcoholic. So Dimitri showed up in both Aibileen and Minnie, and then May Mobley and Skeeter are both young and adult Catherine. Now, moving on to the next loosely based relationship, to me was Skeeter and her mother, Charlotte. In the Too Little Too Late segment, Catherine does not come right out and say that she and her mother don't get along, but what she did say is, I can talk about my mother, but you can't. But we don't hear people saying this unless there's some sort of chaos or turmoil between the 2 people involved. So that's what led me to believe that. So a lot of things Skeeter's mother did and said made me wonder, what exactly went on there between Catherine and her mother. She didn't always agree with the way her mother did things and said things, but she always respected her mother. And I believe that's the way Catherine probably was, and that's okay, because I'm pretty sure, we had, those of us with children, we definitely, especially nowadays, don't agree with a lot of things our kids do, but you love them nonetheless. So that relationship stood out to me as well. So I had some thoughts as I was reading this book that I would like to share with you all. I also have, some stuff along the way that I'll be inserting throughout the telling of the story, guys. But this is my 4th time reading this book, and I still wonder where in the world she came up with these names. May Mobley Leafold, Treelor, Bertrina, Godella, and Plantain. Now we'll go into I'll try my best, you guys, to attach the right characters with the telling of the story as I go along. One of the other things that crossed my mind is I wonder if my favorite singer is aware of her mentioning him in this book. And my favorite singer is Stevie Wonder. She mentioned his song Fingertips somewhere. That was in like the first chapter, if I'm not mistaken. She mentioned him again somewhere along the way, but I can't remember where. But I don't think she named another song. She just mentioned him. Kind of makes me wonder if she likes him too, or if she was just going with, the music charts from back then in that day. Okay, let's get into the telling of the story as much as I possibly can, guys. The book opens up with, let me say this before I get into the telling of the story. Earlier I said that I saw the movie, and I did, but I much prefer books to movies. Movies always seem to disappoint me. All right, with that being said, the book opens up with Aibileen. Remember, to me, I told you guys that Dimitri, or a little bit of Aibileen, or a lot of Aibileen, is reflected or is found in Dimitri. Dimitri raised Catherine. Aibileen is currently raising her 17th white child named May Mobley Leafold. We learned that Aibileen has lost her son. Her son's name was Treelor. Treelor. I think is how you say it. Treelor. He was killed in a car accident at the age of 24. He was also in the process of writing a book at the time of the accident. He was dating a lady, and his mother, Aibileen, seems to think that they would have gotten around to getting married before, it's just that the accident happened first. Now, after he passed away, she was very depressed, which is understandable. It took her 5 months to get up and go back to work. Her friend Minnie, which we'll discuss later on, nursed her back to health. And sometime in her despair, she at once considered offing herself. But Minnie was always there. She fed her, and I guess she, did whatever else she could to be there for Minnie during this during her time of bereavement. So I'm glad that she was there for Aibileen in that way. When she did get up and knew she had to go to work, she goes to work for Riley and Elizabeth Leafold. These are May Mobley Leafold's parents. They are a couple who are trying to keep up appearances while they're trying to do this desperately so. But they are drowning in debt. We all know people like that. And when I say they, I say that as a couple, but I believe it was more so the wife, who was the one running around spending money. She knew they didn't have it. The father, her husband rather, was going out working every day, and she was the one paying the bills and stuff. He tolerated a lot of it, but it's going to eventually cause a problem. And so it's at a luncheon that Mrs. Leafolk is hosting that we learn, or we are introduced to Elizabeth's good friends, Hilly Holbrook and Skeeter Phelan. The three of them have been best friends since elementary school. So then Hilly goes on and tells them that she ran into Celia Foote, who is now married to Hilly's ex-fiancé, Johnny Foote. She, meaning Hilly, also goes on to tell them about her plans to draft a home health sanitation initiative. Now, it sounds like Skeeter was a little reluctant. She didn't say anything outright, but we learned later on that Skeeter, not only was she reluctant, but she gave Hilly some pushback. And so right from the start, Abilene senses that there is something special about Skeeter. Skeeter to Abilene is a different kind of white person. You know why? Because Skeeter spoke to the help. Abilene's best friend's name is Minnie. Minnie is 17 years younger than Abilene is. Minnie that is described as a short, very heavy-set woman and she's also a cause it like she sees it type person. I think she was mentioned as being 5 feet tall, weighing 165 pounds. Now that is really big for someone that short. Okay, but like I said, she was also a call it like you see it type person. Whatever came up, came out. And it really did not serve many in the long run to be so quick to pop off to people. Abilene has a prayer book. And what I find unique about the prayer book is that, you know, when you're little, if you are raised in the church, you're taught, well, in Christianity anyway, that you are taught to get down on your knees and say your prayers. Now, a little bit about me. If truth be told, very seldom do I get down on my knees and say my prayers. Now, don't get it wrong or confused. I pray every night. I pray every day. Sometimes I pray day and night, but very seldom do I get on my knees. I have, and I'm pretty sure, God willing, I will before I leave this life. But the unique thing about Abilene's prayer book is the fact that she didn't get on her knees, or I'm sure she did, but for the most part, she had a book where she would write prayer requests down for people. So even in, their times of despair or need, they would just go to her, especially her church community would come to her if they or their loved ones needed prayer. And a lot of times when she prayed for people, guess what? Their health improved, be it spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, it all. She just seemed to have that gift. She also, at this time, she hadn't really started talking to Skeeter yet, but she sensed that she felt the need to pray for Skeeter's mother, so she wrote a prayer down in her book for her mother. We don't know this up front. First, we find this out a little later on in the book. All right. Minnie has lost a job partially because her boss, Hilly Halbrook, has decided to place her mother in a nursing home, but she lost the job mainly for back talking to Hilly. Now, we learn all of this at this luncheon at Mrs. Leafolk's house. We also learned that because Abeline was serving the lunch, she hears all of this information. Now, remember I told you that Hilly's ex-fiance, Johnny Foote, is now married to Celia Foote. Well, needless to say that Hilly sees Celia as an arch rival. So after the luncheon is over, or one of the times, Abeline goes into the kitchen. She ends up talking to Minnie over the phone, and she was telling Minnie, you need to watch her back because Hilly, or Mrs. Hilly, or Miss Hilly, I'm not exactly sure how she referred to her, but she is on to you. She's talking about putting her mother in a nursing home, but your smart mouth is going to be what I feel she'll use to fire you. But when she was talking about Mrs. Walter, Minnie said, well, is she saying that Mrs. Walters isn't eating because of me? Because I made a caramel cake and I couldn't get her to eat one crumb. Now, I don't know if I said this a while ago, but when as your health starts to decline, so does your appetite begin to wane. I don't think Hilly felt like Minnie was doing anything to cause her mother's health to go down necessarily. But I do believe that Abeline was trying to warn Minnie to watch herself because she knew it was only a matter of time, and then she would be, out of her job. All right. Wait a minute, let me go back up here. When I was talking about Abeline and her prayer book, I forgot to mention one of the things that I found funny is that one of the names that I listed earlier, Bertrina, that one of the names I thought was just god awfully ugly. Well, turns out that Bertrina called Abeline a, quote, N-word fool for marrying her, Abeline's husband, 20 years earlier. Well, fast forward 20 years later, Bertrina goes and asks Abeline to pray for her. Now, Abeline is telling Minnie about the prayer request coming from Bertrina, and Minnie tells Abeline, well, now you have the gift. In other words, everybody knows whenever something is going on with them or their loved ones, they know to come to you, and if you can or will, you'll put it in your prayer book and you will pray. And guess what? People's health was improved, be it a little or a lot. They did notice some amount of improvement. And then Abeline was like, well, are they trying to say I have black magic? And Minnie was like, I knew that's how you felt. This is why I hadn't said anything before now. But I think, in other words, Minnie didn't think that Abeline was out for bad or she was into potions and all that stuff. And so no, I think that was Minnie's way of trying to give a compliment to Abeline. Okay, so back to the luncheon. Now, you know, at the luncheon, we've already talked about how Hilly is telling Elizabeth and Skeeter about running into Celia Foot. Well, now, a little while later, Minnie calls Abeline screaming, telling her that Hilly has let her go. She has accused, well, like I said, part of the reason she let Minnie go is because she put her mother, Mrs. Walters, in the nursing home. But then she couldn't really find a reason or justify keeping Minnie on. So instead of just letting her go because her mother was in the nursing home, she goes and accuses Minnie of stealing. So this is when Minnie calls Abeline screaming, telling her that Hilly's running around telling everybody that she stole from her. That was an attempt to keep anyone else from hiring Minnie. Well, 3 days after her last day of employment with Hilly Halbrook, Abeline is at home tending to May Mobley. Elizabeth is not at the house at this time. Then the phone rings. Abeline answers. And this is when we actually are introduced to Celia Foot. Celia has called Abeline, well, she thinks she's calling Elizabeth, and she is calling Elizabeth's house. But she's calling to try to see if there's anything she can do to help with the children's benefit. Now, because of the way she got with her husband, Johnny, she basically has been ousted from high society. And that's what she does. She tries to get back in their social graces. And I guess she must have thought being willing to volunteer to see what she could do to help with the benefit was her ticket in, but that was not happening. So Abeline tells Celia that Elizabeth is not home. And that's when Celia tells her. And when she's talking to Abeline, Abeline recognizes the name, but she could not place it until she brought up the benefit. So Abeline tells her, well, just give me your phone number. What did you say your name is? And she gave her name as Celia Foot. Then that's when bells went off with Abeline. And then she said, well, what's your help's name? And I will call. If I don't get you, I will leave it with your help. Celia tells her that she doesn't have help. That was one of the things she wanted to talk to Elizabeth about. So at this time, because like I said, Minnie has been unemployed now for 3 days. So Abeline takes it upon herself to volunteer Minnie. She tells Celia that she even has a car to drive out there, because I think Celia and Johnny live on like the outskirts of Jackson. So Celia was like, oh, well, I still would like to talk to Elizabeth about it. Well, somewhere through the conversation or towards the end of the conversation, excuse me, guys, May Mobley tugs on Abilene's skirt and tells her that her tummy hurts. Abilene decided to use that opportunity. She says, hold on, wait a minute. What's that you say? She's like, okay, I'll do. She goes back on the phone and tells Celia that Elizabeth has just come in and that she couldn't talk but for her to go ahead and give Minnie a call. And she knew she was lying, but that was one time she lied and she was all right with it. She had no qualms about doing so. So apparently that's how Minnie got the job, through Abilene. Because I don't know why Hilly just took it upon herself to lie. She could have just told her, your services aren't needed anymore because I put mother in the nursing home. But anyway, all right. So Minnie does get the job through with the Foots working for Celia and Johnny Foot. Oh yeah, when Abilene told Celia to call Minnie, she said, and just don't tell anybody that Minnie is working for you because she's such a good cook. Everybody wants to hire her. And Celia was like, okay, your secret is safe with me as long as you don't tell mine, because my husband doesn't know that I'm hiring a maid. So, about Celia. I keep saying Celia. Her name is Celia. She's from Sugar Ditch, Mississippi. I don't know if that's a real place or not. I Googled it and couldn't find anything out specifically about it, so I don't know. When Minnie gets there, she has to walk Celia through the hiring process because Celia had absolutely no idea of how to run a household. She just had no clue. Now, let's talk about Minnie again specifically. On her 14th birthday, Minnie's mom gave her 7 rules to abide by that black people must follow when working for white people. Okay, side thought, when I was reading this book, it talks about how, well, Minnie says that her mother had a way of wagging her finger in her face so long that Minnie would go cross-eyed. Now, guys, I don't know how long it would take you to go cross-eyed from having a finger wagged in your face. I know it probably is only a matter of a minute or less, but that's still a long time to have somebody in your face if the end results is going to be you going cross-eyed. I just thought that was pretty funny. Also, something else I should have mentioned while I'm looking for this other thing is when I was talking about Bertrina asking Abilene to pray for her. Well, it seems that Abilene's husband Clyde ran off with a lady named Coco. Bertrina is really good friends with Godella. Bertrina told Godella that Clyde ended up leaving Coco because he said her coochie stunk. He said it smelled like rotten oysters, and whatever it was Coco had, it took her 3 months to get over after he left. I just thought those were two funny things. Also, when Minnie was talking about how, so Bertrina was telling Godella about whatever went on with Coco and Clyde. And then, excuse me, y'all, my sinuses, and please excuse any background noise you may hear. Well, we didn't ever hear anything else from Godella or Coco. And after she got on the prayer book list, we didn't hear anything else from Bertrina either. But it's safe to say that Aibileen, if she did pray for her, she probably did. Because here's the one thing about the human spirit. Most of the time, if we are wronged, we still don't want to just keep holding grudges and being mean. So I believe that when Bertrina came to Aibileen 20 years after calling her, a derogatory name, Aibileen went right on and continued to pray for Aibileen. What's her name? Bertrina. Lord, the names are so ugly, sometimes it's hard to remember them. So we come on, let me see if it was anything else I needed about that, about Minnie or Bertrina. Oh yeah, so on the way home from work one day, the maids were on the bus, and Minnie apparently has a gift of gab, and she's also a funny person. So she's sitting there entertaining a lot of the other maids, talking about Mrs. Walters. I guess this was before, I know it had to be before she was placed in the nursing home. She was telling the maids how she told Miss Walters to get your full self in the house, or something along those lines. Get your full self in the house and put your underclothes and some clothes on. And one of the other maids was like, she was naked? And Minnie was like, she sure was naked. And she was like, her behind was drooping down to her knees. And I thought, gross, but it was funny at the same time. I'm like, my goodness. And then one of the other maids was like, that lady's crazy. And Minnie said something smart back to him, because she felt like she was the only one that reserved the right to talk about her boss, nobody else. So even in that way, Minnie defended Mrs. Walters, although Minnie didn't have a problem with Mrs. Walters. It was her daughter, Hilly, that Minnie had the problem with. Okay, now on to see if it was anything else I found funny right at this time. Okay, so now let's catch back up. So, yes, Minnie has now gone to work. Like I said, she had to coax or walk Celia down through the hiring process, because she had no idea of how to work. So everything seems to have been going smooth for quite some time. Johnny didn't know that Minnie was working for them. But it turns out, once he found out, he was okay with it. He turned out to be a pretty upstanding guy in the end. And so did Elizabeth's husband, as far as that goes. We at least learned, and we'll get to this later. But when I get ready to close out. Well, now we're on to... Okay, now, yeah. On Minnie's 14th birthday, her mother, I think I just said this earlier. Bear with me, people. I said I'm still in the process of learning, so I may repeat myself a little more than usual. But Minnie's mom gives Minnie 7 rules that black people must follow when working for white people. Rule number 1, it's nobody's business. In other words, turn a blind eye and a deaf ear. You guys, I think that's one rule that held true both then and now. Why insert yourself in matters or affairs that don't concern you? Rule number 2, don't let that white lady catch you using her bathroom. We're talking about the decade of the 1960s. That an offense such as that could have gotten someone killed. Rule number 3, when cooking for white people, use a separate fork or spoon to taste the food when no one is looking. I guess by no one it meant the white people or the boss in particular. Rule 4, use the same dishes every day and keep your dishes separate from the white people's dishes. Rule number 5, eat in the kitchen. All right, let's go back now to the segment Too Little Too Late. Catherine says that her parents and grandparents always told her when it was time for Dimitri to eat, for all of the children not to disturb Dimitri. They said that lunchtime was Dimitri's time. The children that is, all kind of hung out around Dimitri, but a lot of times it would just be Catherine. She said she would just stand off to the side. She may poke her head around the corner. And just as soon as Dimitri was done eating, Catherine, would be there waiting on her to come out of the kitchen, and they would go on with the rest of the day. So I think that's where Catherine knew to put that rule in. Rule number 6, don't spank their children. The reason her mother gave for this is that they, meaning white people, like to discipline their own children. This is true, but so do we. The reason I would have told many not to spank their children, though, is because I wouldn't want my daughter, or myself for that matter, to be accused of physically harming or hurting their children. I will discipline your children. Well, I will chastise your children. That I would do. And if you, my employer, have a problem with my doing so, then I would have to find other employment as well. I wouldn't have been popping off and talking and acting and saying whatever coming out. That's not it. But I most definitely would have said something. I wouldn't have hit them. That's a protection for you as much as it is the children. Rule number 7, no sass mouthing. Guys, why was this the rule many either could not or would not abide by? It's like, to me, I kind of get the impression that had her mother not said that, many may not have been so quick to pop off. But because her mother knew it, thinking she was saving her, time out of work, or, keeping her from getting fired all the times. Because Minnie said herself she had been fired more than she had fingers. But I guess the other reason the mother said that is because by Minnie being her child, she knew that Minnie had a fondness for being smart, so I guess she was trying to give her heads up. But that's the one rule Minnie just absolutely positively refused to follow. So remember at the luncheon when Haley was telling Skeeter and Elizabeth, Miss Walters, about running into Celia Foot and Abilene, when she talks to Celia on the phone, she remembered hearing the name Celia Foot, but she couldn't remember where. So now Minnie has gotten a job working for Celia Foot. And remember, I told you guys, I said earlier that Celia's husband, Johnny Foot, was once engaged to Hilly Holbrook. And it's only after Minnie goes to work there and finds a picture of Johnny and Celia that, she and Abilene put two and two together. So that was how that went. But I what I don't understand about Celia is this. Even though, according to Celia, Hilly and Johnny were no longer together when she first started dating Johnny. But knowing that knowing that Hilly felt like she was the reason they got a divorce, why would you think they would be willing to put bygone issues aside and allow you to help them work with them? I'm not saying either way that is right, but I just feel like Celia should have had better sense than to think that maybe she thought enough time and distance had passed. But look, that was not the case. She was not welcomed, and she finds out eventually. But yes, now, Minnie was hired first and foremost to cook and clean this mansion. Now, about the mansion, she says that the mansion is dirty. She cannot understand for the life of her why this mansion is so dirty. And we then learned it's because what I said, Celia had no idea what it took to run a household. Apparently, that stemmed to cleaning too. She didn't know how to clean up. And although she was from a backward little bitty community such as Sugar Ditch, usually in rural areas like that, they know how to clean if they don't know how to do anything else. A lot of times they think they can cook, but I beg to differ on some of that. But so I don't understand why it was that Celia couldn't clean. Well, maybe it wasn't that she couldn't clean. I'll talk about a little bit later why the house was always so dirty. Now, but like I said, she was there primarily to teach Celia how to cook and clean. But she apparently needed Minnie's companionship as well. But Minnie noticed that all she did was stay in the house. She could never encourage her to go anywhere or do anything. She would sometimes say she was going to, and then it would be, well, maybe you can go do it, or maybe you can bring it tomorrow or whatever. She just couldn't bring herself to come out of the house. And like I say, when she did, it was always running in behind Hilly, Elizabeth, and Skeeter. But mainly it seemed to be Elizabeth, because I think she knew she couldn't approach Hilly up front because she was the arch rival. Now let's talk about Skeeter a little bit. Remember when I said that I felt like Skeeter's relationship with her mother was loosely based on Catherine's relationship with her mother? We learned, that Skeeter's mom is preoccupied with Skeeter not wanting to be married. All Skeeter wanted to do is be a writer after college. And her mother just didn't grasp that concept. At birth, Skeeter was 25 inches long. The only reason I believe her birth length was mentioned is because your birth length, I believe, is one of the things that determines how tall we are as adults. And like I said, both Catherine and Skeeter are almost 6 feet tall, between 5'10" and a half, 5'11" and a half. So that's the only thing I can think of for them mentioning her birth length. Okay. When she graduated from college, she knew she did not want to live in Mississippi. So when she moves back home with her parents, she applies for a job in New York City. Well, she didn't get the job, but to me, what she did receive was a rejection letter chock full of priceless pearls of information and wisdom. Now, the editor at this job in New York City, her name was Mrs. Stone. And Mrs. Stone gave her at least 2 good pieces of advice. The first thing she told Skeeter to do was to go to her local newspaper and get an entry-level job. Okay. To Skeeter's credit, that's exactly what she did. A lot of times, people, and I don't mean to shame or call white people out, but let's face it, white people, especially those who consider themselves or either other people may consider them to be people of privilege, white people of privilege. When they have gone to college and finished, well, this has nothing to do with race, because I know a lot of people of color, you'd be like, no, this is more of an issue of the human race, not necessarily an ethnic group. But a lot of people would have been like, no, I will not go and apply for an entry-level job. That is completely beneath me. I've done everything society said I should do. I was a good girl. I made the good grades. I completed college. And sometimes some of them may have graduated with honors. So an entry-level job is considered beneath them. So they, but like I said, to Skeeter's credit, she took Miss Stone up on her advice, and she did get the job. But my favorite thing she said is she told Skeeter, don't waste your time on the obvious. When you get the job, don't waste your time on the obvious. Instead, write about what disturbs you, especially if it bothers no one else. Now, it's been a few months ago now. I did a tips and tricks to get the most out of reading video. And I didn't know it, but I evidently was on to something, because in one of my tips, I can't remember which one, but I said, but in my case, I was speaking mainly on celebrities or famous people, and I said, yes, you should read the obvious, because it shows consistency or inconsistencies. But you should focus more so on the underlying details, because a lot of times that is where the truth lies. So I may have been onto something when I said that. Who knew? I didn't.